Hello everyone, hope you're well today guys. Good to see you. Today I'm going to be talking about whether certain functions are intrinsically better than others. I mean, we probably already know the answer, but you'll see where I want this to go. So before I move on to the topic, just remember that I've written 2 books in the last year and a half or so. My new novel, The Infinite Castle, and The Ecstatic Soul, my book on the INFJ, both available down below. All the links in the description box, less than $10. Support my work and my Patreon page, also down below. So, of course, there is at one level a sense in which it is meaningless to say that a function is intrinsically better than another. Now, the reason for this is that it doesn't really mean anything to ascribe such a value judgment to something which is essentially just functional. It just regulates certain parameters of our relationship with reality. And yet, a lot of people do behave as if, or think as if, there were certain functions that were, if not better to have than other ones. There are certain functions that are associated with being more deep. I'm thinking of NI, I'm thinking of TI, I'm thinking of FI. There are certain functions that are associated with being more decisive. I'm thinking of TE, for instance. And, you could apply that, functions that are associated with being more creative, things like that. Now, even that is actually probably inaccurate. There's ways of being creative with any function. There's ways of being decisive with a bunch of functions also, and so on and so forth. But the reason why I wanted to take a moment to reflect on this is that even the extroverted function versus the introverted functions are not opposed by, a dichotomy of deep versus proactive, or deep versus, or profound versus decisive. There is at times a preconceived idea that the more extroverted the functions are there, so that, we can just get on in the world. We have to do these things. It's good to have those functions because they allow us to be, functional in today's society, and they allow us to have jobs and friends and stuff. But really that, what's most important on top of having these things is this inner core of introverted functions that keep us in touch with who we are, that keep us in touch with our innermost authenticity, and constitute in a way the gate to depth and to finding yourself. And it's an interesting distinction because we find ourselves in a scenario where the extroverted functions almost become seen, especially by introverts. So obviously INFJs would be a core of the audience here, but a lot of introverts. The extroverted functions would often be seen either explicitly or implicitly as, necessary evils in a way. Things that it is good to have, but that, should never be one's priority. It's just that, if one could do without them, one would, but it is not possible in the world today, so one can't. So it's important to have them, but it's really something on the side almost. And I just really want to debunk this idea because depth has nothing to do with, introversion, extroversion. Now, for some people, that will sound like a platitude, something trivial to say. For some others, that will actually sound like something that's patently false or questionable. A lot of the time, people will think, "Oh, but surely depth is about introverting, insofar as depth requires being reflective, being someone who reflects, someone who therefore pauses for a moment, explores what's going on internally, carves it, analyzes it, parses it, and gets a clear vision of what they are internally about before they proceed to the next series of actions, moves, projects in the external world." And, well, that's actually not true. Because, of course, depth, there's a discussion recently on the Discord server that inspired me to discuss this, but depth is not really about how how introspective you are in some sense. Or, I mean, of course, there's a link between introspection and depth, but what I mean is that introspection, right, should not be a constant. It should not be a constant. I think that introspection, extreme introspection, gets dangerously close to solipsism, to living within your own reality, your internal reality, and has a consequence that actually is an obstacle to depth. And the obstacle to depth is that, well, in order for your internal introspective activity to actually go deep, well, it needs to be nourished by new insights. The new insights are going to come from the external world, at least in part. So they need to bring that content, to serve as food for introspection. In other words, you can never completely just look at yourself from inside. You have to be able to look at yourself from outside. And that really requires the use of the extroverted function. So it's possible that maybe the activity of introspection and the activity of, that is constitutive of a profound relation to life, maybe the activity of introspection is by its nature more introverted. But it's always presupposing the collaboration of extroverted functions in bringing the material back into yourself and then back out as well. Back out, again, back through the extroverted functions. Because if you come to a certain number of insights through introspection, well, that's not like, oh yeah, I'm deep, I have a lot of dimensions. If you do nothing with them except just bask in the delight with just having the thoughts, well, again, that's kind of solipsism, and at a certain level it's also navel gazing, so it's, and Jung is actually quite clear about that in his writings as well, saying introspection is good, introspection is important, having clarity is important, but only insofar as it has a prospective function. And what he calls by prospective function, a prospective dimension, is that it's not so much, or it's not only what you come to see internally, what you come to see about yourself, but how you integrate your findings, what you come up with, into a life project, into your, own destiny, how you will shape your own destiny in the world through those insights and by the help of those authentic insights. So it's important to realize that there is always a dialectic between the introverted and the extroverted, and that there is not really, in any sense, one that is prior to the other in any hierarchy. They always function together. If you're completely introverted, you're going to be cut off from the world. If you are completely extroverted, you're cut off from yourself. Neither side is authentic. This is something that has to be really appreciated, It is not true that someone who is just living in their own world and fantasizing in their own world is in any way more authentic than a person who is constantly just out and about, being busy, being with other people. True authenticity brings us back to the idea that man is a social animal, is a reflective animal too. So it's only the conjunction of the two that realizes the full potential of man and woman. So the functions, cognitive functions, are faculties helping us to navigate the world in this dialectical fashion. Let us appreciate them all, and let us all, let us beware of glorifying us introverts, the functions that are more familiar to us and that are our comfort zone. It's always going to be a temptation, but growth comes from confrontation with what is outside. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Bye-bye.